the first tee of Greater Washington, D.C. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank each of you for your support. Very important day out here. I feel like it was a great day for everyone who played in this event. I hope you all had a wonderful time. I've been hearing that most of you did, so it makes me happy for sure. It makes all of us happy. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of our sponsors, especially our top-level sponsors, top-level supporters. Some are gathered here today: Atheris, Fastberry and Sims, Clark Construction, Cushman Wakefield, Nike, Cody Holdings, Lincoln Property, MGM Resorts, Sela, and Skanska Commercial Development. Let's give a big hand for our top-level sponsors. Thank all the other sponsors, and they were all listed there on the scoreboard outside. Also like to call attention to the fact that we had a record 19 board members that were involved in this event, either as sponsors, supporters, or who played in the event today. So I would like to acknowledge all the board members that are here. We had, for the third straight year, just a fabulous committee led by our wonderful chairs who worked really hard on the event: Thad McBride, Malcolm Marshall. It was truly a team effort, but I want to thank and acknowledge both of you, Thad and Malcolm, for doing this for the third straight year. I want to thank our event coordinator, Mitch Saint, as well as the staff and volunteers of the first tee of Greater Washington, D.C. for their support and their hard work. It means so much. How about a big hand for Riverbend? Definitely like to thank my friend John Madden, head golf professional here, catering director Kathleen, general manager Sam Atari, and their respective staffs here at Riverbend. It's a wonderful place, and we just have a great time each time we're here. The last person I want to thank for Riverbend is Club President Bobby Feinstein for his support and for again welcoming us to this fantastic club here. I want to thank Bob Dolan, head pro at Columbia, program chair of our board, his brother Ed Dolan, director of instruction at Locust Hills Golf Club, for giving their time and leading such a fun clinic for our kids and fellow pros and patrons. I saw some of the patrons participating in the clinic today, which was awesome. I also want to thank Chris Costantino, Michael Pius, and Tommy Smith, fellow pros, for helping lead the clinic. Probably most dear to me here is thanking both Kirsten Vanderhorst and Victor Fuentes, two of our outstanding participants, for being with us all day on number 3 and number 10. Getting some great shots along the way. I know we used number 3, Kristen's ball, number 10, Victor's ball. So thank you both for being here. I want to acknowledge and thank someone who's very special who's with us today. And he's played in this event for the last 2 years. I had the opportunity to play with him last year. And that's Dave King. Now those of you know Dave King, and I know most of this table does, they know Dave as an educated man, a superb athlete, who became a premier men's amateur golfer, a champion senior golfer, and now a champion super senior golfer, as he reminded me this morning over breakfast. Ranked number 6. Dave is also a philanthropist, though, in the community, which we've experienced firsthand. Now, Dave approached us late in 2014 about setting up a scholarship fund for 2015 and 2016 for several of our participants based on need and based on merit. Through the first tee of Greater Washington, D.C. Dave King Scholarship Fund, we were able to award 3 participants scholarships toward college totaling a combined $10,000 last year. This spring, we are pleased to award 2 participants, one to a current student and one to an alum, with a $5,000 scholarship towards college. On behalf of the entire First Tee of Greater Washington, D.C. family, we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Dave King for your generosity. We're going to call Dave up for a special photo, but before we do that, we're honored tonight to be joined by those two participants, those two scholarship recipients that I spoke of. And we now have the opportunity to hear from them on how the First Tee has impacted them. James J.T. Moore is a very recent high school graduate from Fairfax High School. He is an Eagle level participant who competed in the Nature Valley First Tee Open at Pebble Beach. I saw that firsthand. Amazing shots that he hit out there. He will attend and play golf at St. Augustine's College in Raleigh, North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, J.T. Moore.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to first thank Mr. Dave King for this scholarship opportunity. You have helped so many students make their collegiate dreams come true. And thank you to all the committee members who took the time carefully to review all the applications, which allows me to stand here today before you as a recipient. I also want to thank my parents and my sister for supporting me every step of the way. Your push and encouragement means everything to me. An example of an adult mentor relationship at the First Tee for me would be Coach Michael Pius. From my first meeting, he had been inviting and pleasant, making my decision to join the First Tee of Greater Washington, D.C. an encouraging one. I have never seen Coach Michael angry. His quiet demeanor matches mine perfectly. His knowing the game of golf on so many levels attract people to him. He is one of the most patient people I know. He never shows frustration with a participant or parents, always giving kind reinforcement and encouragement. Coach Michael exudes all of the First Tee non-core value. He is honest, has great integrity, always shows sportsmanship on the course, and has respect for everyone. He shows confidence in all he does, takes on responsibility with ease, teaches perseverance by example, is always courteous and has good judgment. If he sees talent in a player, he will push him or her to their fullest potential. He is the best at cheering on young players as well as myself. When I earned the opportunity to participate in the Nature Valley First Tee Open at Pebble Beach, Coach Michael went out of his way to videotape a message to me, which included some of the First Tee participants for encouragement. I want to thank Coach Michael for encouraging me to develop my go-to team. Coach Michael has been a dynamic catalyst to my success in golf. It has been a pleasure working with him alongside with the great staff of the First Tee of Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you, JT, for that. Great job. Clarence Bennett just finished his second year at Prince George's County Community College. As a 6-year participant in our program, he reached Eagle level status, has completed in several Metro Tour events and local opportunities, including the 2013 Perfect Sense Digital Pro-Am at the AT&T National. Clarence is now an aspiring coach in our chapter, so we look forward to him giving back for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, Clarence Bennett.
Hello everybody, my name is Clarence Bennett, and first off I would like to thank Dave King for the scholarship and pretty much his whole group for letting me caddy them. And I would also like to thank the First Tee for giving me all the opportunities to play at these wonderful events. Without them, I'd probably be working at McDonald's or something like that right now. But for many of people around us, we usually take hearing for granted. The hardest obstacle that I have ever had to overcome was learning how to hear and speak at a young age. When I was around 5, I pretty much had issues with ear infections, which led to pretty much having learning disabilities, which pretty much isolated me from the rest of the groups of kids at my school. I've always been an optimistic person and pretty much been going to speech therapy since I was 5, during and after school, for roughly about 8 years. So that really took a toll on me in the beginning of my life. But then I had a sudden interest in playing golf for some reason. Don't know why. Neither do my parents. But without the first tee, I probably wouldn't be playing golf because they didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to start. And pretty much the first tee had a free program down at DC at Langston. And that's where I've pretty much been for the rest of my life. And I'll probably continue to be there till I get older. And hopefully I'll be a coach there between next year or the 2. Thank you.
All right, Dave, a great group photo here with these 2 fine young men who definitely exude the 9 core values of the first team. This event, and we really, really appreciate your support. Thanks so much, Jack.
Thank you, Clint. Thank all of you for coming. One piece of information before we get on the main order of business. You know, this is the first tee of Greater Washington, and when I started, it was just Washington, D.C. And then a couple of years ago, we expanded into Northern Virginia. And I'm happy to tell you that we have now reached an agreement in principle, doesn't sound in the papers, but we're there, to go into Montgomery County. So when you're all here next year, we will be D.C., Northern Virginia, and Montgomery County. So that's it. When we were thinking about a speaker for this year, we wondered who could follow John Feinstein and Fluff Cowan, and we decided to call on Denny Meyer to call upon his good friend, Dean Beman. And Denny, thank you for prevailing on Dean to come and be our speaker. I have to be very careful here so that the introduction doesn't exceed the length of the speech, because there's a lot I can tell you about Dean. He is one of our own, born in Washington, D.C., grew up here, played at Bethesda Country Club, and as I was told at a first tee event last night, spent countless hours on the practice putting green at Columbia Country Club. He established an extraordinary amateur record, won a number of tournaments around here, the Eastern Amateur, the Trans-Miss, Porter Cup, the Maryland Open, but of course the majors were the 1959 British Amateur, the 1960 U.S. Amateur, the 1963 U.S. Amateur. He played on 11 USGA teams, including 4 Walker Cup teams, Eisenhower Trophy teams, World Championship teams, probably more than any teams any amateur has ever played. From his successful amateur career, he turned professional, played the PGA Tour, won 4 times on the PGA Tour. But what I think Dean is most known for, despite his stellar amateur and professional record, is his 20 years as commissioner of the PGA Tour. He was the 2nd commissioner, and when he took over, it did not resemble what it is today. It had assets of less than $1 million. By the way, when he left, I think it was $300 or $400 million when he left. He was, as they said, a visionary. And while he was there, he set in place all that you now see in the PGA Tour. For instance, the developmental tour, then the Hogan Tour, which is now the Web.com Tour, was established by Dean. The Senior Tour was established by Dean. The network of PGA golf courses was established by Dean. The Players' Championship and the Players' Course at Sawgrass are Dean Beman's ideas and accomplishments. The charitable contributions from each PGA tournament is another thing that Dean Beman put in place. The pension plan for the players on the PGA Tour are as a result of his leadership. So sometimes in the last few years we've heard that every player ought to say a silent thanks to Tiger Woods for putting money in their pocket. And of course some of that's true. But the person that they really should thank for all the money that's available to the players now is Dean Beman. He was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2000. He received a PGA Tour Lifetime Achievement Award in 2007. I can tell you he is a great friend of golf. He is a great friend of the first tee. Dean, we're honored to have you here. Welcome home.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate those remarks. It is nice to be home. I was born in Washington, D.C., and my first few years were in McLean, Virginia, and then I moved to Bethesda. So I claim heritage from D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. The format for me this evening is I'm going to make a few opening remarks, but I thought we old folks tend to rabble on, and I know you'd rather ask some questions that you're interested in, not just hear what I'm interested in telling you. So I would like to make a few remarks. I want to thank you for inviting me here this evening on this, what I call a perfect day in the Virginia countryside. And I say perfect because it couldn't be more perfect than spending the day playing golf and raising money for a project that's touched the lives of more than 5 million young people. Golf is a special game. It's unique in the world of big money sports. And I say unique because where else do you see athletes, professional athletes, show a respect for the game they play, a respect for the rules, and actually play by the rules? They respect the rules officials, and they respect their fellow competitors. Golf is a game that displays honesty and integrity. You don't compete at the highest level of this game unless you learn to persevere, play with courtesy to your fellow competitors, and build confidence in yourself so you can perform when it really counts. It's no accident that the game of golf's traditional values so closely mirror the first tee's 9 core values: honesty, integrity, sportsmanship, respect, confidence, responsibility, courtesy, and judgment. The first B was born out of the core values that the PGA Tour professionals show every week when they play on television. In the late 70s, when I was commissioner, early on, I asked the Tournament Policy Board to enact something that has never been done in any other sport, to require that all PGA Tour tournaments contribute 100% of the net proceeds to charity. The results of that are astounding. More than $2 billion has gone to local communities through our golf tournaments, honoring the work of the volunteers who make those tournaments possible. Without the volunteers, there wouldn't be the golf tournaments that you see. The culture of giving is part of the fabric of the PGA Tour and its players. Complete records haven't been kept, but I know that PGA Tour members, apart from the tournament organization, have probably raised more money through their own foundations than the PGA Tour has, in projects like the Tiger Woods Foundation. The PGA Tour and its players have raised more money for charity than all other sports combined. The first tee is a product of this culture of giving. When the LPGA, PGA of America, USGA, and R&A agreed to join the PGA Tour in supporting the World Golf Hall of Fame Foundation, the PGA Tour stepped up and funded the development of the World Golf Hall of Fame with an $80 million gift. My successor, Tim Fincham, decided that this new foundation, the World Golf Hall of Fame, should honor more than the accomplishments of the competitors, and thus the first tee was born. I'm here to tell you that your contributions honor the game of golf and have a direct impact on young lives. And I'll open it for questions. Delighted to respond to anything that you're interested in the game of golf or anything else that comes to mind that you think I can respond appropriately to. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question about the Olympics coming up. So what are your thoughts on golf joining the Olympics?
Well, golf got into the Olympics because of television, the money that golf would bring to the Olympics. I don't think it has a major impact in the United States, but it has had a tremendous impact in lots of parts of the world. For instance, in China. China has been developing golf for a number of years, but it was the category in China for golf was a leisure sport, and it had a special tax on it, the memberships and fees and everything else. When golf became an Olympic sport, those fees went away, and it's had a great financial impact on golf in China. And I suspect it's had similar impacts in other parts of the world. So as far as the U.S. is concerned, I don't think it's had a major impact in developing golf as a major sport, but certainly it will have an impact in the rest of the world. Yes, sir.
Jack went through the number of wins you had. What was your toughest win and why? Or which win meant the most to you?
Probably the 1960 U.S. Amateur. I played a lot of good golf leading up to that. I won the Trans-Mississippi. I was on the Walker Cup team. But I was on the Walker Cup team with Jack Nicklaus, Tommy Aaron, Billy Joe Patton, Harvey Ward, and I wasn't heralded to win. So I went over and played in Muirfield for the Walker Cup. I won all my matches, and then I won the British Amateur in 1959. And it was still a question of did this guy, was that for real? And when I came back the next year, won the U.S. Amateur, I think it's sort of, what do they say, when you're playing skins, that you have to back it up with at least a par in the next hole. I think that's what it did.
Dean, talk a little bit about how technology has changed the game from the time you won the British Amateur and your amateur, even when you were on the Pro Tour.
Well, I'm not sure anybody wants to sit around and listen to as much I would like to say about that, but I'll make a few points. I think technology has done a great deal of harm to the game in total. Technology may be needed by the average player, but played on the PGA Tour and at the highest level, I do not believe it has increased the skill of the players. I think probably the best couple of examples I could give you is that back when I played my first Walker Cup team, first time I went to England to play, we played the small ball, the 166 golf ball. And why did we play it? We played it because it didn't spin as much, it didn't curve as much, and it required a little less skill, and you could keep it in the fairway and hit it longer. And the old 166 golf ball isn't as good as the new golf balls that the players are playing with today. So the players, even if it's a 168 golf ball, the current golf ball being played is technically superior to the old 166 golf ball. The USJ many years ago did some testing with the modern 360 cc driver with a golf ball and found out that at the tour speed, I think it was 115 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour maximum, that they found that if you mishit the 460 cc driver, that it would cost you 5 yards and it would still go dead straight. And they tested the old clubs that I learned how to play with, and Jack Nicklaus won most of his major championships with. And if you missed it a half inch off center with that driver, you lost 50 yards and you might not be able to find the ball. So, not to get too technical about it, but I would say this, and I maintain this position, that if you took the top 20 players on the world money list and gave them Ben Hogan's and Arnold Palmer's and Jack Nicklaus clubs and balls that they used, and they could start in January and play every tournament, not to go home and take a little vacation, but play every week, not half of the top 20 would make the cut week by week. Not one of them would win a golf tournament. That's how much difference there is. And I'd add one more example that that I think maybe illustrate the difference. And that is that when the rest of the world played the 166 golf ball that went farther and straighter than the 168 ball that I learned how to play golf with. When the RNA changed and required the rest of the world to play the 168 golf ball, only then, and it took 4 or 5 years after that, did the British start winning the Ryder Cup. Before that, they got killed because the golf ball they were using required less skill to play better golf. Yes, sir.
Following up on that, in terms of the dominance of players, and back in those days, do you think that that very phenomenon was a key driver of that? In other words, the technology today, for lack of a better description, is somewhat forgiving, right? Was the technology back then a better discriminator of where the real talent was, so you had more dominant players, versus today when people say, well, the talent pool is so deep today? Well, maybe it is technology.
Yes, well, strength is key. Strength and length is key today, okay? When I was playing, I've never been more than 5'7". And I played all my, I played, somebody said I was 6'1" when I became commissioner, and that's how I got to be 5'7", but that's not true. I was never concerned playing somebody that could hit it farther than me. Some bigger guy that just happened to come out of the womb bigger. Because if they swung at their full potential, maybe 2 or 3 times around, they didn't connect quite right. And it wasn't that they were just missed the fairway a little bit. Sometimes and most of the time, they couldn't find the ball if they swung that hard. Mike Suchak was a football player, a great athlete. And he told me that he swung at about 65%. That if he swung any faster than that and used any more of his natural strength and ability, that he couldn't control the golf ball. So he always geared down. So there is a tremendous difference in I believe applying real skill. The players today, there used to be a great balance between distance and accuracy, between short game and long game. And that balance has now been skewed very much to how far can you hit it. And I'm not sure that's in the best interest of golf. Now, one other thing. The USGA and the World Golf Foundation and the officials at those organizations believe that golf is struggling today for 3 reasons. 1, it's very difficult to learn how to play. 2, it costs a lot of money to play. And 3, it takes a long time to play. Technology has created this image of golf that has not required, but the decision making of clubs and the officials at clubs in order to have a championship golf course. It's got to be something in the neighborhood of 73 or 74 or 7,500 yards long. Well, what happened? And in order to protect par, you've got to have a green that's 12 on a step meter. All of those things, it costs more to build the course. It costs more to maintain the golf course. It may cost twice as much to maintain a set of greens that you want stepping at 12 than it does at 8 or 9. Might cost twice as much. So I believe that technology has impacted the way the game is played, but it's also put the game out of the reach of the average player. So it takes them too long to play, and it costs them too much money to play. So I think technology has had a huge impact on the growth of the game. Yes, sir.
So we've seen a presumptive presidential nominee have a huge impact on golf, and his impact, whether it's Doral or Turnberry or up in Scotland. What are your observations on that impact of someone in that limelight, in that controversy, Mr. Trump's legacy with golf?
I don't think that's going to have an impact on golf at all, and I think that what happened at Doral is just the normal course of events as far as the tour is concerned. If you can't find and don't have a major corporate sponsor who puts up somewhere between $10 and $12 million for an event, you can't hold an event of that kind. And when Cadillac decided not to renew its contract, then the tour had to find a place to play that event. And they had to do it in a timely manner, and time ran out. So I don't think that reflects negatively on either Trump or the PGA Tour. It was a business transaction, and I think Trump understands that. I don't think he likes it, but I think he understands it. Yes, sir.
As I recall, you turned pro a little bit later in your life than, most of the people who turn pro now. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what was going on at that time, and sort of how did you make your decision about turning pro versus staying as an amateur?
Well, I wanted to turn pro in 1963. And I was planning on turning pro after the Masters tournament in '63. But because I like to dig it out of the dirt, and I don't, back then I didn't mind cold weather. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to Bethesda Country Club and practice before I went to school, even before I had a driver's license. That was my practice. And so what I did was, practicing in the wintertime, I hurt my right hand, and I was really unable to play in more than 3 or 4 tournaments a year. I couldn't hit more than 10 or 15 practice shots for maybe a period of almost 5 years, from early '63 until in the late '67. And I had an operation on my right hand that they couldn't correct it, but they you know, everybody knows what carpal tunnel syndrome is today. Well, that's what I had. And they couldn't stop the pain, but they transplanted the carpal ligament in my right hand underneath those tendons. So I could, my right hand would swell and still get inflamed, but it wouldn't hurt anymore. And once that happened, I was able to start practicing. And I then decided in early 1967, after I had that operation in '66, to turn professional. But I was pretty impaired for about 3 years. Yes, sir.
In your opinion, during your generation, who was the best amateur golfer that stayed amateur and didn't turn pro?
That did not turn pro.
That did not turn pro.
Probably Bobby Jones.
So in your generation?
In my generation, boy, I don't know.
How about Bill Campbell?
Bill Campbell,
Charlie Coe?
Charlie Coe, Bill Campbell, Joe Hyman, Harvey Ward, Billy Joe Patton. Those would be the guys that stayed amateur. Questions over here? Yes, sir.
Who's your toughest competitor in your mind?
In my mind, the toughest competitor, yourself. That's usually the toughest competitor, yourself. Back here,
Do you recall what your first place checks were when you won those 4 times?
I never won more than $20,000 winning any of those tournaments. As a matter of fact, I was a young man, Alum Clarence wrote a book about my 20 years as commissioner several years ago, and I was giving some talks, and some guy rose out of the audience and was talking about prize money and the differential. And he says, well, I've done a little work on my computer. And I said, well, what did you do? He said, well, I took your record, your total record on the PGA Tour, and I calculated, this was 3 years ago, I calculated what you would have won if you were playing today. I said, well, that's interesting. I remember what I won. It was $360,000 in 5 years. He said, you would have won $18,600,000. So there's a little bit of difference. Yes, sir.
You talked about technology, and we're working to bring the next generation up. And technology is such a big part of instruction today. What was instruction like when you were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and heading to Bethesda? How was it different, and how was it better?
Well, I think it was better because it wasn't as much instruction. I mean, I had the golf pro at Bethesda Country Club was Harry Grisner. The assistant pro was a gentleman by the name of Gene Aldridge. And we got tips once in a while. But we were mostly dug it out of the dirt ourselves. And when you, even if you did not have a classic, technically classic golf swing, you probably became a better shot maker digging it out of the dirt. I don't see myself today, the players on the PGA Tour, and they score very well. They make a lot of money. But even with the swings that appear to be beautiful, I do not see that they can hit even the golf ball with the clubs they're playing today, as well as Ben Hogan played, or as well as Lee Trevino, two of the best ball strikers ever. They don't hit the ball as well today as those guys hit it back then, with much inferior equipment, both the club and ball. So from technology standpoint, I think we are robbing the current players of the opportunity to become better players than they are, even though they're winning a lot of money. Yes, sir.
How does the technology, if at all, affect the putting game? And do you think the guys today are better putters, or do you think they were better putters back in the day?
Putting was much different back then because we played on mostly greens that were, it was very unusual to have a green that was faster than 9 on the step meter. And the style of putting was much different. You used a lot more wrist break because you had to hit, in order to hit a 25-footer, you couldn't just, you had to use some hands and wrists in it. So,
Can we go back?
in actual practice, we were not as good putters as the players are today. Because on a faster green, it's easier to make a completely dead wrist stroke today than it would have been back then. So I think they're technically probably better putters today.
But the agronomy has created that, right? Because of the green speed.
Not the agronomy. You could take these greens and have them putt at 9.5 and 10 with perfect agronomy. You just choose to cut it lower. And the philosophy is that is the way of protecting par on your golf course for somebody who can hit it 300 yards. Most people don't understand and know that last year on the PGA Tour, from January until the end of August, there were 65,652 tee shots hit more than 290 yards on the PGA Tour, just in those golf tournaments. And understanding that there were that many hit, but the players only hit the driver a little more than 50% of the time. So they're hitting that long. They're hitting their 3-wood longer than 390 a lot, 290 a lot of times. It's a big number. It's way golf is played today. Yes, sir.
I played laminated with a plastic insert in high school, so I can appreciate the concept of not finding the ball. I don't know if Balad is biodegradable, but I left a lot of it out there. Two quick questions. Greatest ball striker in the history of the game, and the greatest golfer in the history of the game.
Greatest ball striker is Ben Hogan. Pretty close behind that, Lee Trevino. They'd be 1 and 2. Our greatest player who's ever lived is Jack Nicklaus, because he's won